So Chippy was on Q&A in the weekend, and really the biggest thing that I want to talk about with this is the thing that the only thing we all want to talk about with this is capital gains tax. Really, what other questions do we have at the moment? So we're only going to look at that one question. We're going to look at that one question and one slam that Chippy does of Nicola Willis. It was very, very funny, actually. He gave her a slam. But let's have a look at this. The question's being asked, are they going to campaign on a capital gains tax, which is obviously what we ask them every single time we talk to them, and Q&A asked them over the weekend.
Let's talk about the economy. Will you campaign on a capital gains tax?
We'll campaign on tax reform, and what you heard me say today, now the exact nature of that, it's not just a simple issue of this one tax or that one tax. I think the issue that we're trying to address here is we've got to rejig the tax system so that the burden of taxation is more evenly spread, bearing in mind is, we've all got a responsibility to contribute to the prosperity and well-being of the country. And at the moment, the tax system does reward speculative investment, things like going and buying rental properties, more and encourage more.
I've been listening to you, Chewie. That's your point, isn't it? You own that point. Copyright, Chewie.
Than investing in productive businesses that create jobs. And that does need to change.
So you will campaign on a capital gains tax? I mean, you don't need to give us the details.
I quite like that from Guy. It's completely not what he said, but he's saying, so you're basically saying yes. I'd say, I'll give Guy some credit there.
But you have spent years and years and years looking at that. Surely you can tell New Zealanders today that yes, we will campaign on a capital gains tax. I'll tell you the details later. But surely the time has come for you just to say you're going to do it.
We're going to be.
So here's the question for you guys to think about. We're going to keep playing this, but this is what I've written down to think about, Chewie. I guess we all know that he's not going to commit to it, right? But he's not going to rule it out either. So is him not saying today yes to a capital gain tax, is that a net negative? In other words, is that more harmful than if he had have said it? Is it a net positive? In other words, not committing to it today is more positive than negative in the media cycle, or is it net neutral? So that's what I want everyone to think about. And we'll ask that. That's my question for you at the end, Chewie. Is this is this the right thing he did, the wrong thing he did, or it didn't really matter that he's not going to commit to it?
Announcing our tax policy this year. I know that people want to have plenty of time to think about that. And yes, it will be a rejig of the tax system. But
I'm not asking you.
But the important questions go on, and not just what new tax will have, but where will money go.
Fair enough for today. And my question is, will you campaign on a capital gains tax?
I'm not answering that today because we haven't locked down our policy on that. And including,
I quite like. Sometimes it gets frustrating when politicians won't answer, but I quite like the directness of I'm not answering that today. It kind of gets past the I'm not playing games, I'm not doing word salad, I'm just going to say I don't have that answer today, I'm not saying it today, which I think...
There's actually a really good reason for it, and I'm surprised he doesn't mention it because it just shuts down this line of questioning. But we'll talk about that after the clip.
All right.
Campaign on a capital gains tax.
I'm not answering that today because we haven't locked down our policy on that. And included in that will be consideration of if we introduce any new taxes, where the money will go.
We'll talk about that in a second, but who's driving this policy? I mean, are you in charge of this party?
Absolutely.
I like how he asks who's driving this policy when they're not talking about a policy that he won't commit to. So who's driving this policy that we're not talking about? I think in fairness, he is probably saying who's driving the tax policy, but kind of sounds like, that CGT that you're not going to commit to, who's driving that policy? It's quite funny.
And do you want to go ahead with a capital gains tax? That's a pretty easy question.
It is.
And what's the answer?
I'm telling you, I'm not going to give you the answer today because I'm not announcing our tax policy today. I know everyone's obsessed about tax. Certainly the current government are obsessed about tax, but tax, not all roads lead to tax. Whatever you decide on tax, and this is the reason why I'm not answering it today, whatever you decide on tax has to fit within a broader economic plan that includes where that money goes. If you're raising new tax revenue, where does it go? Does it go to offsetting, i.e. reducing taxes in other areas, or does it go to new spending? And those are pretty fundamental questions.
And we can unpack some of that as we go. But you are going to campaign on tax reform. You told me
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so there will be changes to the tax system, not just the income tax rates.
That's correct. Absolutely.
Okay, so you are going. We are getting somewhere, aren't we?
You are getting somewhere. Look, the structure of our tax system, if you look around the world, New Zealand's quite unique in the sense that the vast bulk of the government's tax revenue comes from income tax or GST.
And is that fair?
And I don't think it is fair.
Okay, and what are you going to do about it?
Well, we'll announce that in a few months.
But is it fair if I work as a cleaner and get $60,000 a year, I pay tens of thousands of dollars in tax to the government, and if I flick an investment property, I pay zero tax? Is that fair?
No, I don't think that's fair.
And are you going to do something about that?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's pretty much a capital gains tax, isn't it?
I'm not announcing our tax policy today, but...
Again, I mean, that was good questioning by Guy.
I like it.
Good on you, dude. I mean, it might not be that. It might be changes to the business tax system. There might be other things as well, but yeah, I think Guy's sort of pulled it out then. So credit where credit's due.
You get the direction of travel. We do want to see that speculative investment, speculative decisions that are paying their fair share of tax. The people making their money off that activity are paying their fair share of tax. But in other areas, actually want to encourage more of certain things. We want to encourage more savings. We want to encourage more investment in businesses and in productive enterprise that actually creates jobs for Kiwis.
Okay, can you rule out a wealth tax?
Oh, as I've said, I'm not announcing our tax policy today.
So that was quite a split with Labor last time, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're working through that along with the
You
team.
don't support the wealth tax, do you?
Look, I'm not announcing our tax policy today.
There you go. So there's the clip I'm going to play, Chewie. Now I'll come to you, mate, and you're going to tell us something about the obvious thing they didn't go to, but also was his avoidance of that answer a net positive, a net negative, or a neutral in your thoughts?
I am on several different places with this. Part of me wants to go, you know what? Just spit it out. Just say, hey, look, this is my personal view of where I think this should go. And just dump it out there. And realise that National can vent their spleen as long as they like. It's Labor's job to convince the electorate that this is the way to go. And they're going to give themselves as much runway as possible to do that. The reason that hasn't happened, the reason that he's talking about, hey, look, we haven't locked this down yet, is it's got to go to their caucus. And that's coming up in a month or two, I believe. They have to get the party to sign off on it. So just remember, a party leader isn't a king. He still has to run it past the people that count. And I think that's what's happening here. What I think is smart, and this is, I acknowledge that this runs completely contrary to what I just said, that I wish he'd just dump it out on the floor and there you go, that's what we're doing, is he's made a game of it. Guyan's had to tease it out of him. He's pretty much walked up to that line and said, yep, that's what we're doing. But he's made it a bit of sport as well. I think in the past couple of years, there's been so much, going back to Jacinta rolling out capital gains tax, seen the feedback from everybody. Everybody's been really consistent on this. They've picked up on the fact that it's an unfair tax system. As Chippy mentions, it's income tax and GST, and that's it. We don't really have anything else. The messaging has been really, really consistent that we need to take the heat out of the housing market. That's where everyone's parking their money. It's just a tax black hole. And they need to close that. And there's flow-on benefits from that. Money starts flowing into businesses because that's a better investment. Because if it's all getting taxed the same, then why not take a bigger gamble on a business, and maybe it's going to pay out better. It's also going to stop people hoarding fucking houses when we haven't housed every Kiwi.
Yeah, I think it's a net neutral. And I think we've been fair in the past when Luxon hasn't released something that he's been asked by politicians. I think we've gone, it's fair enough that he doesn't have the answer for that today. We don't need to do it. I don't know. Maybe my bias is showing it feels like that's a little bit more definitive with an answer of a no answer, but I'm just being honest. Maybe that's my bias.
It's trending in the right direction for me. I'm pretty happy with this. If the tax policy is an older piece of paper with the Green Party logo crossed out and it just says Labor's tax policy, and it's just something that they've grabbed from Chloe's waste paper bin after the last election, I'd be stoked with that. Like, we're going to be really consistent going forward that the pathway here is tax wealth more and work less, tax wealth for health, all of these good things, all of these good messaging. Like, there are less wealthy people than there are middle income earners. If they can get that message to stick, that we are coming from somebody's money but not yours, and really hammer the flag to that flagpole, I think this could be a winner.
I think as well, and I want to play the piece here where I think he slams Nicola Willis. It was quite funny. You always hear people say, well, if you're going to tax the wealthy, they'll all run away. I'm going to go like, I think what the answer for that now is, I think the answer for that is, show me where that's happened. And the answer is you can't really find anywhere. Okay, you might be right. Let's test it. And if you're right, we'll change it. Let's just see. Let's see if you're right or not.
Yeah.
So they're about to talk about, and I think Guy uses a word like people with economic mana, people who are well respected in the world of economics. And it's only 30 seconds. Yep, sorry.
Just before you hit play on that, in my opinion, if that's the pathway that National are going to go down, we can't tax the wealthy, they'll all fuck off. The answer to that every single time is, what would you prefer? All of our tradies and nurses, or some wealthy people?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
all right.
That's the answer.
All right. So have a listen to this. Guy on inadvertently led him into a pretty funny slam of Nicola Willis.
Do it this year.
Do you think the appetite is there now? We've seen some heavy hitters come out in support of it. The head of the largest bank, the Treasury, the World Bank, the IMF. It's hard to find someone with mana in economics who doesn't support it.
Well, I'm glad that you think the current Minister of Finance doesn't have any money in economics. I agree with you.
No, I didn't say that.
No, but actually, the only people who seem to be vociferously arguing against changes in this area, in this broad area, are the people who make up the present government.
Pretty funny. All right, so some news. Chewie, you mentioned, I haven't even told you this yet, Chewie, I don't think. You mentioned tax wealth more, tax work less. I'm going to try and get us those T-shirts made this week, because next Monday night at this time, Chippy is here with us.
Fantastic.
So
we
next
need
Monday,
to get
9
those
PM.
out everywhere before the budget.
And everybody in the chat can wear them, because even though we can't see you, like if we know you're wearing those T-shirts once we make them, you'll be with us in spirit. I'm kidding. We're not going to get them out by then, but I might try and get a couple of samples made, Chewie, and then we can wear them when we're talking to Chippy. Tax wealth more, tax work less. Now, another part of the conversation around the government today is this one. Curia poll out today. Now, you know, people who watch us for a long time, that we don't take much credence in like seats in the House with polls that are done this time of year. Because no matter what people say, oh, they've got the numbers to form a government, they don't. They get those on election night, and that's the only time they get them. But what we do like to look at is the trends and what's happening at the moment. And the trend at the moment for National is trending down. Now, I don't care about seats in the House, but what I do care about is asking the question, is this indicative of how people are feeling about National in the country at the minute? And I think the answer to that is yes. Labor is trending up. Is that indicative of how the country is feeling about Labor at the moment? And I think the answer is yes. Now, what you find with the numbers is basically Labor goes up and the Greens go down. So have they just taken them from there? But then again, Te Pāti Māori go up as well. But at the moment, according to this one poll, one rando poll, which often has a right-wing lean, Labor at 34.1, National at 33.6. I put a tweet out today that said, if this is what the Curia poll is saying, what does that really say about what the country thinks about National at the moment? We're not going to stop quite there either, because we go to preferred prime. Don't care about that, the seats in the House, what we do. But preferred Prime Minister, which also is indicative of how the people are feeling about our leadership. And we've got, well, they haven't given us the numbers, have they? They haven't given us the numbers. I can't see the numbers.
Oh, look at that trend.
You can see
that
Chippy.
Delicious trend.
Chippy is ahead of the Prime Minister and preferred Prime Minister right now. And yeah, the trend, well, when was this? This was June 20. Okay, so when was the election? October 23. So he sort of reached his peak at about 35%, about the middle of last year. And since then, it's just been trending down, 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 down. And some of the people that he's trending down with will be people who voted for the right bloc. There'll be people who voted for ACT, who think he's a spineless jellyfish. There'll be people who voted for National, and they're going, you're letting these far right guys get away with nothing. So there'll be a percentage of this trending down, a percentage of his unhappy people who are also his voters. Whereas if you have a look, I mean, Chippy stayed, but let's be honest, let's be fair. Yeah, he's a little upwards one, but he stayed pretty much consistent the whole time. You know what I'm saying? And then the last one I wanted to look at was favourability. And as you can see, Hipkins, the yellow is the plus minus. So the only person in positive favourability is Chipkins. Luxon's bad. Seymour's terrible. Jones is terrible. Van Velden's terrible. Winston Peters a smidge into the negatives. Chippy has a positive favorability. So the trends around that are interesting. The trends around that are saying the electorate is voicing displeasure with this current government. And I guess I would wonder, Chewie, pose the question, how do they get out of this slump? What do they need to do? Because if they're slumping now, that means what they're currently doing is not exciting their base. And what they're currently doing is xenophobic, racism, slamming Māori. It's all these things. That's not working, Mr. Luxon. If you want to be Prime Minister 2.0 in 18 months from now, how are you going to turn around that Titanic? Because you're slumping with what you're doing now. You've got to do something different, just from a leadership point of view. Chewie?
Here's the thing. Both Winston and Seymour are an albatross around his neck.
Yeah.
Because they're forcing him to do stuff that's unpalatable with the middle. It's just nonsense that he's getting dragged into. And he's not strong enough. He's not an experienced enough political operator to know how to handle those two career politicians.
Yeah, for sure.
That know this game. Like it's like being invited to a board game night where the two people that invited you as a third know all the rules and been playing it for ages, and you've literally just stopped being an airline CEO and come along for the ride. I think that analogy works.
I'm with you.
It's a little bit
only because I know somebody who every time you do board games at their house, it's just like, oh, just do this, and you basically spend the whole night sitting back watching them play your game for you. So I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think what we've seen in the media today, because of course people have brought this poll to him and gone, "Hey, this doesn't look good, bro." Is his only response is to try and laugh it off or get pissy, and sometimes in the same interview. It's quite bizarre. But yeah, I know people and I know you've said this point, but I'm just going to say it again. I know people put so much stock on polling, and so much of it is rubbish and just headline generator. But what we want to look at here is trends between polls. So if the next couple of polls show a downward trend in preferred prime minister, well, then that's a trend that I want to see. I want Luxon to get to the point where all he's hearing in his headphones is whoop, whoop, altitude, pull up.
Yeah. This is the worst as well. This is the worst trend of all the ones. This is the worst. This is about if people trust the Prime Minister, like the Prime Minister, think the Prime Minister's running the country well, trust for what he's going to do in the future. And just for the last, what are we now, March? So that's, let's say 10 months, 8 to 10 months. It's just been down, 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 down. That's the most concerning. I mean, you could look at the seats and you could look at that and they're all kind of, there's not such a huge drop. It's been pretty consistent with one recent drop off and it's been pretty consistent with one recent gain. But that one there for who people think should be Prime Minister, yeah, that's a concern. And that's what we always talk about with this research. It's always the preferred Prime Minister is a completely valid thing to poll, because that tells us how the nation's feeling about the Prime Minister and who would do the best job. And by the slimmest of margins, the country is currently saying Hipkins would do a better job, but by the slimmest of margins.
I think there's another comparison here as well, right? Is now people are really hearing the sharpening of knives at National because this trend is so sustained.
Here comes Erica.
Right? You just keep coming down. And people will be sort of looking at that and going, well, if we're going to take the next election, then we need someone that people don't think is an inauthentic tosspot.
Yeah.
So yeah, there will be people trying to shore up their own support amongst the party. And I think Gary's just mentioned it here, and it's a rumor that I've heard as well. my reaction was very similar to Gary's here. Rumors of Maureen Pugh phoning round to check if she has the numbers to roll Luxon made me laugh so hard I nearly pooed my pants. I think there's as much chance of that happening as her getting struck by lightning an unprecedented 4th time. It's my favourite fact about her, someone that Simon Bridges called absolutely fucking useless. She's been struck by lightning 3 times. Phenomenal. Learn the lesson.
Let's get some of these chats, unless there's anything you want to finish up on, something absolutely
there is one thing I want to.
Yep, sorry.
There is one thing I want to finish off on, because there's a comparison, right? People are going, well, why are we talking about Luxon being rolled when Chippy has consistently been under that mark? And I'll tell you what the difference is. Chippy has had the support of his front bench and his party. There has not been any rumours of it. People have gone to Kieran McAnulty and gone, do you want to have a go? And he's like, nah. No, I don't.
And Kieran's basically gone, stop fucking asking me. Let me just say for the last time, fuck no. Now, he hasn't said that, but that's been the vibe. It's been like, get the fuck away from me with this question.
Yeah. So I think Hipkins has the support of his party.
Yeah.
And if they get their ducks in a row on this tax policy and they come to, for lack of a better word, market with a coherent message that is simple and can just drum into the foreheads of voters in a way that it sticks, I think they're potentially onto a winner. We've had a short, sharp shock of right-wing nonsense, and I think it's given people a real oh shit moment. This is terrible. Things haven't got better. You can talk about the economy as much as you like, but grocery bills haven't come down, your mortgage payments haven't come down. There's all of these extra expenses, and things are objectively worse. So it's not working, Luxon.